Hey everybody, happy Tuesday to you. It's been a few days since I've had the time to record a longer video, and honestly I don't know how much time I have here today. I might get interrupted, but anyway, I've just grabbed a stack here of things I've been meaning to talk about, and it's just a partial stack. You know, every day it is just an endless fire hose of crap that's just coming at you fast and furious, and you can't even keep up. I don't talk about a fraction of the things that I feel the need to talk about because they're important. And apologize, itch here. Hopefully beginning next week, I think in earnest, I will have more time. This is a real crazy period of time for me. Oh yes. I have a turkey, a wild turkey that visits my property every spring. And she likes a certain part of my property here. And she lays eggs somewhere over there. I'm not exactly sure where. And then she raises her little chicks until, you know, they're quite big, probably half her size or more, before they all sort of take off. And from the moment they hatch and until they leave, they're just here in my yard. Like, they never leave. They're in one certain spot. But this year she didn't show up. And I thought, well, something got her. But then all of it, because it's usually in the spring. But then all of a sudden here, in the last week, she has reappeared. And she has a bunch of brand new baby chicks. And she's right over there. Let me see if I can get some video. All right, there she is. There's her little chicks. She's right in front of my trail camera, so I should get some good shots of them. Anyway, there she is. Anyway, people ask often why I record outside all the time. I like it out here. It's calming, it's relaxing, and it's hard to stay calm and relaxed of late. In fact, I kind of went on a rant yesterday in my car because it was raining. And of course, that's the other place I like to record my videos. Anyways, I went on a rant about Donald Trump's executive order, which purported to ban flag burning and to create a mandatory year in jail punishment for anyone who burns the American flag. Of course, the executive order did absolutely nothing of the sort. It didn't do anything. It didn't even pretend to change the law. If you actually read the executive order, which I made clear in that video with proof that Trump did not. He never reads these executive orders. He just lies about them. Anyway, I don't know how I got off on that tangent. Only a couple minutes in and I'm already going off on tangents. Okay, I'm just going to hit some news here. In no particular order. I just saw, by the way, on social media, this buffoon weighing in on Cracker Barrel, changing their logo. I didn't read it. I glanced at it. It was his typical calling people names, and it's stupid, and they're going to go out of business if they don't change it back, and whatever. So, you know, I guess that's what the President of the United States is supposed to be doing, dictating to private companies what their logos should be. Maybe he will take over, take an interest in Cracker Barrel. Maybe he will seize a percentage of that company, as he did Intel, right? And, you know, don't you love all these conservatives? You know, I've been telling you for I don't know how long The Republican Party is not conservative anymore. They have completely transformed. There's nothing conservative about them. They are fascist. It's a fascist personality cult, which is now increasingly socialist, right? And remember, it wasn't all that long ago, and hell, they still do it, where they constantly accuse Democrats of being socialists. And here, Donald Trump is literally seizing the means of production. He is literally a socialist. It's almost hard to believe sometimes that this is actually reality, as I've talked about before. Maybe it's not. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe this is a simulation. Maybe the timeline split and we went off into bizarro world or something. I don't know. But it's hard to believe that any of this is true. And it's hard to believe that the American people are tolerating any of this. And maybe they're not. Maybe they're biding their time, and we'll see them come out in full force for the midterm elections. But at this rate, we will have midterm elections. I hear people say that all the time. He's going to cancel elections. He's not going to cancel elections. He can't. They're not within his power to cancel. And I know people say, well, he doesn't follow the law. He doesn't follow the Constitution anyway. He gets away with all this stuff. Yeah, but he does things to violate the law and to violate the Constitution, but that are... He orders people to do things that work for him, that work for the federal government, and they have to do what he says, so they do it. And so while he doesn't have the legal authority to do it, he has the practical power to order people to do it. Not so with canceling elections, because the federal government doesn't control elections. So what's he going to do? Order the states not to have elections? They don't work for him. So he's not going to cancel elections. He can't. But he wouldn't want to anyway. Dictators love elections. They need elections. They just rig them. But they love elections because it gives them the ability to rig them in their favor, but then cite the outcome of the election, the fact that they won the rigged election, that is proof of their popularity. They like to claim how popular they are. And that's what Putin does. They have elections in Russia. He just rigs them and he kills his opposition. They fall out of windows, they get poisoned, all this kind of stuff. Saddam Hussein had friggin' elections. Dictators have elections. So we're going to have elections. It's just a matter of whether or not we have fair elections. That's the question. And that's one of the reasons why Trump is wanting to send the military into Chicago, which I talked about in a couple of videos. One posted yesterday. One is going to come out later today. And I talk about why Chicago is the place where we need to draw a line in the sand. We have to stop him there, or things are going to get much, much worse and much more difficult to stop later. At each point, we've had lots of easy ways to stop this whole thing dead in its track. And at each step of the way, we haven't. Either through cowardice of the people who were in a position to stop him, like, for example, Mitch McConnell in the Senate. We should have had him convicted in the second impeachment trial. He would not be president today. He would be on trial right now for his crimes. Right about now is probably when he would be going on trial in Judge Chutkan's court. And he wouldn't be president, but for Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell knew he should have been convicted, but he figured stupidly that after January 6th, Trump, he's politically dead. He can never come back. He will never be reelected after what he did. So we don't have to make his cult followers angry at us. We don't have to get the death threats. We don't have to worry about all that. We don't have to convict him because he's not coming back anyway. It's over for him. And so he took the coward's way out. If he had made a different decision, he could easily have gotten, the other senators, sorry, text came in. I get a lot of questions. What do you record on? My iPhone. And I just got a text. Anyway, he could have easily had Trump convicted in that second impeachment trial. He didn't. He should have been convicted in the first impeachment trial. I mean, he took taxpayer money that was appropriated by Congress to go to Ukraine. So that money was by law supposed to be dispersed to Ukraine for aid. Trump instead said, nope, I'm not giving Ukraine that aid. I'm going to legally impound it and use it to blackmail him. You either dig up dirt on Joe Biden, or at least just say he's under criminal investigation in your country, or I'm not going to give you this money. That's illegal. It is unconstitutional. Impoundment of funds was one of the articles of impeachment drawn up against Richard Nixon. Anyway, he should have been convicted on the first impeachment. Definitely should have been convicted in the second. If Merrick Garland hadn't waited 2 years to appoint a special counsel, Trump would have gone on trial well before the election. He would have been convicted. He would have been convicted on charges related to the insurrection. But that didn't happen. So time and time again, all these easy things, those should have been done. Those were no-brainers. But the people who were empowered to do something about it failed to do so. And then, of course, the greatest failure of all to stop him was November 5th of last year, when the morons who surround us in this country actually chose to reelect an insurrectionist, a man who lied about the election, who organized a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of an election, and organized and instigated a violent insurrection against Congress. When all his attempts to overturn the election in the courts failed, he organized a mob, a violent mob, directed them at Congress to prevent them from certifying the results of an election he lost. After all that, after having been found liable for massive fraud, by the way, you heard the news last week that a New York appellate court, it's going to be appealed further, but a New York appellate court overturned part of the judgment against Trump in that massive fraud case. Now, the media, being as pathetic as they are, gave the impression that that whole case was overturned. That didn't happen. It was the monetary fine that was overturned. It was found by the appellate court to be excessive. But the court affirmed the central judgment in that case, which was that Donald Trump engaged in massive fraud, and that it also upheld the injunctive punishment, which prevents Trump and his organization and his family members, his corrupt little sons there, from conducting business in New York State for a period of time because of their corruption, because of their fraud. That should have been the headline. The headline coming out of that story should have been that an appellate court upheld Trump's fraud conviction. That is what the news angle should have been. That should have been the coverage. Appellate court upholds Trump's fraud conviction or fraud judgment. But instead, they went with the appellate court overturns the fine, but they made it sound like the whole case was overturned. Anyway, that's just, once again, just shows you how pathetic and worthless and misleading our media is. You want to know why we're surrounded by blithering idiots in this country? The media is one of the reasons. But they're plenty stupid on their own. Don't get me wrong. The American people, on balance, are pretty fucking stupid all on their own. They don't need the media to dumb them down. So yeah, that was the ultimate failure of the system. It was the failure of the people. After all, this is a democracy, and we, the people, the voters, could have ended it right then and there on November 5th. But they didn't. They put him back in the White House. It's unbelievable. And not just the people who voted for him, but the blithering idiots who didn't even bother to vote at all. A guy who was literally promising to be a dictator and now making good on that promise, literally promising to be a dictator, and they voted for him after he incites a violent insurrection against his own country and everything else he did. Adjudicated liable for sexually abusing a woman, defaming her. I mean, just the list of horribles with this man should all have been known by the American people. A lot of the American people didn't know because they're oblivious, completely oblivious. And I know it's hard for some of you to believe that. They voted for him in spite of knowing all about his crimes and sexual abuse and all that. No! A lot of them didn't know. Maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. I mean, a lot of them did know, and it didn't make a difference. And maybe it wouldn't have made a difference to many of them who didn't know. But I'm telling you, a lot of them didn't even know. They're just completely friggin' oblivious. And here we are. We're pointing out all the parallels to 1930s and 40s Germany going on in this country. And it's almost as if they're running the mustache guy's playbook, like just taking everything he did and just doing the same thing here. So we are watching this. We're trying to wake people up, thinking, how the hell can the American people not be, everyone be outraged in the streets? Most of them don't know. Hell, that YouTube works, TikTok works on their phone. You know, they got Netflix. And I'm not saying that you're part of the problem if you are on YouTube, obviously. I'm glad you're on YouTube. I'm not saying you're part of the problem if you're on TikTok. I'm on TikTok. Or that you watch Netflix. I watch Netflix. The point is, it's bred in circuses, man. It's ancient Rome, you know? This is how the Roman emperors kept control of the people. Give them bread, entertain them in the Colosseum. You know, as long as they have they got food in their belly and they're entertained, they don't give a shit what I'm doing over here. They're not going to come after me. I'm not going to worry about it. Keep them entertained with bread and circuses. That's what's going on here. You got your Netflix, you got your TikTok. As long as you can scroll mindlessly for hours upon hours, watch stupid cat videos or fucking stupid dance videos or whatever your thing is, you know. Not you. I'm talking about all the morons. The morons wouldn't watch something like this. They're gonna watch this. They're gonna watch their stupid dance videos and shit. Okay, what else do I have here? Anyways, it's hard to believe this is real. I think that's how I got off on this tangent. I saw comments. I told you this is in no particular order. Saw comments by Trump. He had one of these ass-kissing sessions in the Oval Office. This is where he gets some people, some staffers or whatever, to come into the Oval Office while he sits there at the desk. More and more, he doesn't get up. He doesn't want people to see the cankles. By the way, I tell you about the pathetic press. He took like an hour's worth of questions in the Oval Office the other day with that big bruise on his hand, a new bruise. Not one question from the worthless reporters there in the Oval Office. Not one question about his health. Not one question about the bruise. Because they won't be allowed back if they ask an actual question. Anyway, Trump had this ass-kissing session. He had Pam Bondi there and Stephen Miller and some other person. You know, they take turns kissing Trump's ass, telling him how wonderful he is. And Stephen Miller was up there talking about how Trump has freed the city of Washington. Actually, I still have a lot more to say, and there's something I need to respond to. So I'm going to stop this and restart. I'm back. My son had texted me and asked if I wanted to go play tennis, and I'm not going to pass that up. So we played tennis. I'm back. I think we were discussing here Trump's little ass-kissing session there in the Oval Office. And there was one part that struck me. The really despicable Stephen Miller. It was his turn to kiss Trump's ass. And he went on and on about Trump's deployment of the National Guard in Washington and the federalization of the Washington Metropolitan Police Department. And he's going on and on saying that Donald Trump has brought freedom to the people of Washington, D.C. He has liberated them. The only thing that Miller didn't say is that he didn't refer to Trump as the great emancipator. And maybe he has by now, but it's only a matter of time before Donald Trump, if someone else doesn't refer to him as the great emancipator, then Donald Trump will bestow that name upon himself and, take it from Abraham Lincoln. He has already told us that he is a greater president than Abraham Lincoln was, or that George Washington, FDR, all the rest of them. He's the greatest. He's better than them. Of course, I seriously doubt that Trump would know that Lincoln was referred to as the great emancipator. I seriously doubt. So he probably will never get around to calling himself that. Just for sheer ignorance, if for no other reason, because I'm sure if he did know that, he would take that name for himself. I also just saw a little while ago a clip of Trump talking about wind energy. And of course, he's adamantly opposed to wind energy because he doesn't like the sight of windmills. And he says the most ridiculous things when talking about windmills. I believe he said they cause cancer, they kill all the wildlife, they kill whales. The guy's a fucking loon. But he was talking about how European nations use windmills, and they really need to stop using windmills and go back to fossil fuels. Everyone needs to go back to fossil fuels because any country that doesn't go back to fossil fuels is going to be killing their country, is what this idiot said. When in fact, it's the exact opposite. Every thinking person knows that we are going to eventually transition to something else. Obviously, we won't be able to completely transition to an alternative or multiple alternative sources of energy anytime soon, but that ultimately humanity is going to have to transition to something else. And the sooner we do that, the better, because of the ecological damage that it does. And I know that for MAGA Republicans, they believe that climate change and all of that is just a hoax. Now, even if you are stupid enough to believe that climate change is a hoax, you should still want to move away from fossil fuels just for the pollution factor alone. I mean, do they deny that it dirties the air? I mean, do they deny that? And do they like breathing in dirty air? Apparently they do. If for no other reason than to own the libs, right? I mean, they'll do anything to own. They'll fucking suck on a tailpipe to own the libs, these fucking people. Anyway, these people really are. I mean, they're just full-on anti-science. I mean, we are literally changing the composition, the chemical composition of the atmosphere. Do they think that if you change the chemical composition of the atmosphere, that would not possibly have any effect on the climate? I mean, these people are just beyond stupid. And their stupidity and their need to just oppose anything that the other side wants. And that's what's behind a lot of the climate hoax and the climate denial and all that kind of stuff. It's simply because it's in opposition to Democrats. You know, Democrats want to address the issue of climate change and ecological damage and pollution and all this kind of stuff. They want to seriously deal with that issue, and because they do, mindless MAGA Republicans have to reflexively just oppose all of that. What was I going to say? I was going to say something else. Come on. Whatever. It'll come to me, or maybe it won't. It's not like I don't have enough else to talk about here. Oh, I was going to say this. Also, about the transitioning into some other energy source. We're going to have to. Fossil fuels are a finite resource. I know technically they're renewable, but they're renewable over such a long time frame as to not really practically be renewable for our purposes. And we do have an abundant supply, and they do keep finding more. So we're not going to run out of fossil fuels anytime soon, but eventually we will have to transition. And we should transition as soon as possible. And the truth is, unlike what the Orange Buffoon says, that any country that doesn't go back to completely to fossil fuels, they're going to be destroying themselves. The exact opposite is true, because alternative energy sources, and I'm not advocating for any particular energy source, we should be pursuing all. See which ones are the most practical, the most cost-effective, all of this, and we should be constantly researching and improving. But the Republicans don't want to do any of that stuff. But other countries will. And eventually it is the United States, if we take the advice of the Orange Buffoon, to just stop completely research and development into alternative energy sources, and we just go back full on into fossil fuels, it is the United States that's going to be hurt. Because these other technologies are going to be pursued. But they'll be pursued by other countries. The whole MAGA ethos is regressive. They just want to go back to the past in virtually every respect. Anyway, so Trump is a socialist, right? We know that. MAGA is now all in on socialism. Donald Trump is taking over companies. Literally seizing the means of production from private corporations, and these MAGA Republicans still pretend to be conservatives and still accuse other people of being socialists. It's as I said, it's hard to believe any of this is true. We do have some people, though, who actually remember, some Republicans who actually remember what conservatism is supposed to be about. People who still try to at least pretend to be conservatives while supporting Donald Trump as best they can. You can't, those things, by the way, are mutually exclusive. You can't support Donald Trump and be a conservative. I mean, you could pretend to be a conservative and support Donald Trump, and that's what these people are desperately trying to do. Like, I got this article here about Larry Kudlow. He's upset about Trump taking over Intel. He says, quote, "I am very, very uncomfortable with that idea. I'm very uncomfortable with that one. But that's a conversation." He was talking on Fox Business Channel. He was talking to Stephen Moore. "But that's a conversation for another meal on another day," he said to Stephen Moore. Of course, because you can't really say, that's about as close as he'll come to denouncing anything that Donald Trump does. And so we're gonna have to kick the can down the road. We'll talk about that another time. No, you won't. You won't ever get around to actually talking about it. That's as far as you'll go. You want to be on the record that you are in opposition to the federal government taking over private companies. But that's as far as you'll go. You want it on the record, but you're not really going to push back in any way. You're certainly not going to criticize your orange cult leader, that's for sure. So we got that going on. Let me see here. I printed out a couple of these friggin' tweets, Truth Social, Bleats, or whatever the hell you call his posts. I came across a tweet by Tom Nichols, who I love. I love his stuff. Anyway, he quoted one of Trump's posts. And Nichols wrote, "I will never cease being shocked that millions of Americans think it's normal for the commander-in-chief to talk like a 9-year-old with a behavioral disorder." And that's exactly what this and I mean, I don't think 9-year-olds act as immature as Donald Trump does. And he was quoting this post by Trump, in which he said this. He wrote, this is Trump, "I just watched sloppy Chris Christie be interviewed on a ratings challenged news show this week with George Slopadopoulos on ABC fake news. By the way, what the hell happened to Jonathan Karl's hair? He looks absolutely terrible." He goes on, but I got to stop at this comment on Jonathan Karl's hair. I don't know what happened to Jonathan Karl's hair. I don't even know what it is to which he is referring. I haven't seen Jonathan Karl's hair lately. But whatever has happened to Jonathan Karl's hair, I know for sure that Donald Trump is in no position to be criticizing anybody else's hair. And that's why I love what Gavin Newsom is doing. He's mocking this man. He's demonstrating the absurdity of this ridiculous human being by posting tweets in the way that Donald Trump does. And of course, this is sending MAGA into a meltdown. Because one thing, and I've been talking about this for so long, and I'm so glad that Gavin Newsom has started doing this and that others are following suit. I've been telling you, the best way to deal with him is to mock him. Mock the shit out of him. The cult can't stand it. That's why they construct this mythological version of Donald Trump that bears no semblance whatsoever to the reality of what Donald Trump actually is. That's why they create and pass around these images of a bare-chested Donald Trump with rippling muscles, riding a stallion, carrying the flag in one arm and an AR-15 in the other. Every part of that is absurd. Donald Trump, and of course he has the flowing mane of hair, not like the spotchy cotton candy mess that he spins around the top of his head, and that he's hiding more and more all the time. That's why he's wearing the hat more and more. He's wearing the hat. As he sits behind the Resolute desk, doesn't even want to stand up anymore because he's got to hide the cankles. He's just hiding everything. What? How else can they hide this guy? Maybe they should just have his head sticking out of an opaque bubble, like Bubble Boy. But then his head would still be sticking out. You could cover up the cankles that way, and the obesity, and maybe you won't see the diaper, peeking through the pants anymore. But you still have the head sticking out of the bubble, so that's not going to work. So maybe just the head with the hat pushed down real far. Maybe you just see this, of Trump. Pretty soon that's what we're going to get. Because he's all bruised to shit. Anyway, he's ridiculous. How can this buffoon criticize the way anyone else looks? And of course he's criticizing Chris Christie, calling him a fat... Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Got confused. In the same tweet, he's talking about Jonathan Karl's hair, and he began by talking about sloppy Chris Christie. And of course, he also was making fun of J.B. Pritzker's weight, which was great. In his press conference, he made a point of mocking Trump right back. Laugh at this guy. Don't let it... That's the way Pritzker handled this is the right way to do it. Don't let it get to you. There is no person physically more ridiculous than Donald Trump. Yes, Chris Christie is overweight, but that's all that you can say about Chris Christie. Donald Trump is overweight, okay? Chris Christie isn't caking on, he's not applying orange Oompa Loompa number 5 all over his friggin' face, all right? Chris Christie isn't growing his ridiculous thinning hair out to 3 feet long and spinning it around his head like cotton fucking candy, and then shoving a ridiculous Trump was right about everything stupid hat on top of his head. Every single thing about Donald Trump is ridiculous. From his hair, to his face, to his gut, to his diaper, to his cankles, everything. Hit this man back, mock him. I know it seems, a lot of people don't want to do that because it's so undignified. But guys, this is what works. Okay, Donald Trump is sitting in the Oval Office for a reason. This is what works. Okay, appealing to Americans' better nature. They don't have a better nature. A lot of them. Probably a majority of them. Okay, you can't appeal to their intellect. You can't appeal to their reason. You can't appeal to their decency. It sucks. But a significant percentage, God only knows what it is, but it's up there, of the American people are profoundly indecent, profoundly stupid, and this is the kind of stuff that works. Anyway, what else did I have here? Here's something that he wrote. He's pissed off that Elena Haba was stripped of being U.S. attorney because she wasn't going to get past the Senate. You know, she was appointed. I don't know how Donald Trump. Why would Donald Trump appoint such a loser? She was appointed as a interim U.S. attorney for New Jersey. This is the same lawyer who lost every single fucking case she defended Donald Trump on. Every single one. E. Jean Carroll, the fraud case, all of it. This is the way. Remember when Donald Trump was pissed off in the fraud case because he didn't get a jury trial? It's because his incompetent buffoon of a lawyer didn't file the necessary paperwork to get a jury trial, which I don't believe that that's true. She probably did talk to Trump about it, and he probably elected a judge instead of a jury. You can waive a jury trial. Or maybe not. I don't know. They're both dumb as shit. Elena Haba is barely smarter than Donald Trump. And so who knows? Anyway, the point is, he usually doesn't promote losers. I mean, right? And she lost for him at every turn. Something else has to be going on there. Maybe she was a recipient of the orange mushroom on call, on demand. I don't know. But something's got to explain it. Anyway, she was appointed interim U.S. attorney or acting U.S. attorney or whatever the fuck for New Jersey. And he put her up for, to get the position permanently. But you need Senate confirmation for that. Well, the Senate wasn't even going to take up her nomination because she's so unqualified. And so after, I think it's 120 days or whatever, the court can remove her. And this is statutory law. The court can remove her and put in somebody else who's actually qualified. And so that's what happened. She was removed. And someone else from the office, a career prosecutor, was put in that position. Well, Donald Trump's all pissed off about it. And he wrote, "I have a constitutional right to appoint judges and U.S. attorneys. But that right has been completely taken away from me in states that have just..." Blah, blah, blah. Let me correct this. This is not true. I have a constitutional right to appoint judges and U.S. attorneys. No, he doesn't. He has constitutional authority to nominate judges and U.S. attorneys. Appointing them only happens with the advice and consent of the Senate, which he did not get here. They refused to consent to Elena Haba. Is Elena? I don't give a shit. To this Haba Baba, to the, they refused to even give her a vote because she's so grossly unqualified. So his right was not violated. How about, I didn't hear Donald Trump say anything about this when Barack Obama nominated Merrick Garland to be a Supreme Court justice, and he was never given a hearing either. Now, at that time, Democrats were throwing a fit, raising holy hell, that Barack Obama has a right. No, he doesn't. It's shitty. It's shitty what they did, what Republicans had done, and not even giving him a hearing or a vote or anything was shitty, but it was within the power of the Senate to do that. And it's within the power of the Senate here, in this instance, not to give Elena Haba a vote. And that's what they did here. They refused to consent, and that's why she's not going to be U.S. attorney. And Donald Trump saying that I have a constitutional right. No, you don't, jackass. Anyway, what else did he say here? I don't give a shit what else he said here. So, okay. And then I have this. I think this was a Truth Social post. Except, here's what he wrote. "Except what is written and broadcast in the fake news, I now have the highest poll numbers I've ever had. Some in the 60s and even 70s. Thank you. Make America great again." Now, my question is, does this buffoon actually believe this, that he is polling in the 60s and 70s? He may be polling in the 60s and 70s among Republicans, but in no poll, not even the most Trump-friendly polls that I've seen anywhere, has him anywhere close. The highest polls have him in the 40s. You know, like the Rasmussen. By the way, the current Rasmussen is not even run by the previous, the guy who lends its name. He was an actual real pollster. This new outfit is it's a joke. It's a polling outfit that panders to the cult. That's all it is. And I don't think even they have him out of the 40s. But most reputable polls have him in low 40s to 30s. He is, without question, at this point in his presidency, the most unpopular president in the history of the country, at least insofar as we have polling on this. He is not anywhere close to the 60s and 70s, but I wonder if he is just so insulated. Because, I mean, imagine, look, he shoots the messenger. We know this. We had bad jobs reports, a bad jobs report a couple of weeks ago because the job situation in this country, the employment situation in this country is not good and getting worse because this clown is destroying the economy. And so the jobs report came out, and so he fired the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You give me bad news, I fire you. And then I put somebody in who will tell me what I want to hear. Now, I would imagine that the people around him want to keep their jobs. And so if they present him the real poll numbers that show him in the low 40s to 30s, they might get fired for bringing him that information. But if instead they just take polls that just sample Republicans that show him in the 60s and 70s and present that to him as, oh, look how popular you are, sir. Maybe he believes it. I mean, he's stupid enough to believe that. So who knows? Maybe that's what's going on. Oh yeah, I've got this Truth Social post for here where he was announcing to the world that he's a socialist and proud of it. I paid $0 for Intel. It is worth approximately $11 billion. All goes to the USA. Why? Okay, this is him responding to people criticizing this. Why are stupid, puts that in quotes, why are stupid people unhappy with that? I will make deals like that for our country all day long. I will also help those companies that make such lucrative deals with the United States. He wrote with the United States. I will also help those companies that make such lucrative deals with the United States. I'm just reading what he wrote. I love seeing their stock price go up, make the USA richer and richer, more jobs for America. Who would not want to make deals like that? I don't know, people who aren't fucking socialists, people who don't want to see the government take over private companies, threaten companies. Look at it, I paid $0 for Intel. The CEO of Intel should be run out of that company. Some shareholder should bring a shareholder derivative suit against him and the board. Can you imagine this? He paid $0. So Intel just gave over 10% of their company to the federal government because Donald Trump was threatening them. And within like a week of each other, he posted twice about the CEO. First, he said the CEO needs to resign. He's incompetent or whatever the hell he said about him. Then the CEO gives over 10% of Intel to Trump, to the federal government, and then Trump tweets out that he's the greatest CEO in the country or some shit like that. We have a full-on dictator threatening companies and taking them over, socializing, this is socialism, seizing the means of production, seizing private companies, and MAGA celebrates this. And most people in this country are completely unaware of it. And if you told them about it, they wouldn't understand the significance of it, and they couldn't care less. Don't interrupt them while they're, binge watching their favorite series on Netflix. Don't tell me. I don't care if Trump is threatening companies and taking ownership interests. How does that impact me? I got Netflix going on here. I got a plate of nachos. I'm doing just fine. Anyway, do I have anything else here I wanted to talk about? I really need to be running. Nothing that's pressing. There was something else I want to talk about, but you know what? That's the beauty of this. There's always a video coming up later. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And that's it for now. Talk to you again later.